Hi, I'm High Vibe Heather, energetic coach and healer. I created this podcast to inspire you to connect more deeply with your own life. By seeing every set of circumstances you encounter from an energetic perspective, you can take agency and full creative licensing to make your life extraordinary. What are you waiting for? Let's go. Hello and welcome to another episode of the High Vibe Heather podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I am going to be having a conversation with Birgitta Visser, founder of Power Soul Healing. She works as a light empowerment coach, light language healer, and an author, among many other things. So, Birgitta, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi Heather. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, as I said earlier, I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. So yeah, I also channel the many masters, and I still have one foot in the corporate world in oil and gas. So it's very polar. It's polar opposites.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a very full life. And how do you manage to balance all of these different aspects of it? And do they tend to cross over at all?
I know I'm like this chipmunk on steroids when I'm running on adrenaline. It's I'm kind of like used to it, but it's these are like life experiences that are thrown at us, and the universe is like, wow, what are you going to do? Oh, you want some more hours? Oh, well, let's make that happen. And the universe and our guides are constantly pushing us and pushing us to our limits until we finally, understand the lesson within the experiences. And that's just the main thing. Yeah, but I've always kept going throughout my whole life. I've never, as I always call it, Heather, I've never bowed down to defeat. I I don't know how I do it. Um, that is not really living. That's allowing myself to be lived right now, but I'm very consciously aware of it, and that's the big difference. Yeah. So I know I need to make some changes. I'm working on it. I'm working on it, but I'm not speedy. I'm not exactly a genie in a bottle.
Yeah, yeah. There's only so much bandwidth that a
Yep.
human has. So learning how to manage and find balance, I think, is
Yeah.
part of everybody's journey. So you said you work in the corporate world, oil and gas, polar opposite of your other work in the world,
Yep.
which is, this being a healer.
Yep.
And how do you manage to maintain these two completely different types of work?
By using matchsticks in my eyes. How do I do it? I mean, it's like with the flip of a switch, really. But the truth is, Heather, I mean, I do meditate in the morning and at night, so I make time for that. And I found my medium with that. It's always finding new ways or finding new guided meditations that work for you. And I used to start out with like David G. Now I'm listening to Whispers of the Wild. It's beautiful. And divine light meditations, and they are super powerful for me. I just love listening to their voices. And the voice is always very important to me. It's got to be really soothing. So meditation helps me a lot, and it keeps me grounded and calm. So I know. At night I do my spiritual work, or I do my writing. And I know I'm a nutcase, but I signed up to write two more collaboration books. And my next book's all about angels. So yeah, I set the bar really high for myself, and I've always done that. Um, it's just the way that I'm wired. And I believe in progressing and in developing and just inspiring people. And planting that food for thought seed. Yeah, we're all here to help one another. We're all here to walk back home to the light of ourselves.
So, which aspect of your career did you develop first? Was it this corporate role and then you found this other healing, or was it the healing part and then you were like, I need also to get a day job? Like, how did that happen?
I first had the day job. I started working when I was 15 and I'm still in school. And then from there, I kind of just kept working. And yeah, the spiritual came later. Although, mind you, my dad, I mean, he crossed over in 1988, but he was extremely spiritual. So he was part of the AMRC, which is the Rosicrucian order. And that goes all the way back to the mystery schools of Egypt. And yeah, and so there, and Saint Germain and Katumi and many of the ascended masters, something I didn't even know. Um, and then many years later, fast forward to like 2016 or so, and I started channeling Saint Germain after going through a lot of trauma. And then I started to do the research, and I was like, oh my word. It was just all connected. It was like connecting the dots. So that was super interesting for me.
So, what was that like to just start channeling? Was it something you were like familiar with before the experience happened, or were you just like, what is going on? What's this information coming through me?
Yeah, so it was really funny. Often when we go through very traumatic experiences, we hit rock bottom, right? We have to hit rock bottom in order to understand the experience. So for me, every time it was something that happened in my life, whether it was a tumultuous relationship, very dysfunctional, because I was very dysfunctional myself. So that's what you attract, right? And so in 2016, when I met my former mentor, Alania Starhawk, she is an Akashic record healer. So she walks through your past lives and heals them. Very powerful. And she had this class on how to channel. And I thought, okay, well, you know what, I'm gonna go. And I did, and it was packed, and everyone was sitting in a circle, and I was sitting somewhere in a corner. I'm a bit of an antisocial shit bird. So, and she did this meditation, and there was some light language, but it was counted to three, and then half an hour later, we counted back from three to one. Well, I have no clue where I went, but that's all I heard. And so I was back in the room, and everybody had seen things, or the guys got messages, or the archangels, or whoever. And well, I saw nothing, nothing. And I'm telling you, I was so upset. I really was so upset. And and then Lanya gave an exercise, really simple, and anybody can do this, where you just sit down, take a couple of very deep breaths in, and you just say to the universe, I am ready to receive. Yeah. And whatever you get, just write it down. And so, I mean, my mind is as though, it was shook to hell anyway. I'd come out of a pretty abusive relationship and, mentally abusive. And I was really healing from that. And so I went home after that. And that's the first thing I did. I just got a pad and a pen. And I said to the universe, I'm open and ready to receive. Just because I taught Reiki and I attuned people and I gave workshops in pendulum healing, meditative art. But it wasn't, how do I put it? Everything is like a stepping stone, right? You learn something every time. You learn something about yourself and you peel back the layers. But this was something else. So I'm writing, whatever came out of me. Oh, I still have it. And I look back, I'm like, Oh my God. I was overjoyed, honestly, because it was like all old English prose. That's how I wrote. And then I was like, oh, I'm good at something. I finally felt that that was actually the first time that I felt that I was good at something. And yes, I taught Reiki, but it was more like I was trying too hard. Um, and this just flowed. And so I started asking questions and I started to do this every single day. And in the meantime, I still went for healing. And then I started using my cards and just picking a card. And whether it was an archangel that I got or a deity or an ascended master, I would just sit there and ask if they had a message to convey. And that's how learned to discern them because they all have different personalities. Yes, we're all one, we're all connected to one another, but they still have different personalities, so to speak. And that's how people can identify with them.
It's fascinating. Okay, so what are these cards you're referring to?
So my first, oh, it's funny because this was my very first pack by Doreen Virtue, Archangel Oracle cards. And that's how I started. And then I had Ascended Master cards, that I don't have anymore. So I played around with it. And I always say, everyone has these abilities. Yeah. All you need to do is open the door. All you need to do is heal from your experiences because we often don't. And that's how we clock the pot, as my guides always say. And we keep everything in the archives of our minds and we compartmentalize everything. Yeah. And it gets overcrowded in there. So if we don't heal, we get triggered by things. So if we go through a bad relationship, then we meet someone, we get triggered because, oh, well, I don't want this person to be XYZ, for instance. And it's learning to take that step back and just say, you know what? Once you've healed from it, it's like it's just an experience. It's neither good nor bad, but it's just an experience.
Mm.
And I've really, really had to learn that because trust me, Heather, I was a donkey. I suffered from donkey syndrome. Oh my goodness. I got so many of the same lessons over and over again, wrapped in a different package, so to speak.
I've never heard that phrase, donkey syndrome. Elaborate on what you mean by that.
I call it donkey syndrome because I was just not learning the lessons. And so every single time I got the same experience, as I said, but just wrapped in a different little package.
Oh, how frustrating to
Yeah.
keep having the same experience over and over again until you
Yes.
finally learn. And what was it that finally helped you like really learn and make the change?
Every single experience, every character that's in our playbook of life, as I call it, is a beautiful reflection and a beautiful teacher. We don't always see it that way. And they trigger something within us. And sometimes we can strangle a person. But the question that we need to ask ourselves is, why is this happening for me and not to me? There's a big difference in that. And when you say, well, this is happening for me because of XYZ, what is it teaching me? What can I learn from this? Why is this person being put in my path? And that's something that I had to learn as well because I hated myself so much. It's one of the reasons I starved myself. Um, and it's one of the reasons I also threw myself into my work, just to keep the emotions at bay. And that's why I was really like a freaky squirrel on coffee, and it just kept going and going and going. But it's different now because I'm very much aware of it. And I like to fix others, but we cannot fix others. Yeah. We have to look in the mirror and fix ourselves. And we have to forge that relationship with ourselves. And we live in this world of duality. because without darkness, we wouldn't understand light. Without love, we wouldn't understand hate, all these polar opposites, so to speak. It's all about returning to that love for ourselves. And that is really the hardest thing for people to look at themselves and say, you know what? I'm worthy. I love myself. And no matter what other people think of me, it really doesn't matter. Because people have opinions, people judge, but whatever they say, it says so much more about themselves than it says about you.
Yeah. So I've heard this term before, or this phrase, nobody's your friend, nobody's your enemy, everyone's your teacher. And I
Yes.
try, like, when I go through difficult scenarios and I feel like somebody is being an enemy, I I try to ask myself, like, okay, what am I meant to be learning from this situation? And it's not always clear. And it's so how have you found a way of managing to get that clarity of what you're meant to be learning from a particular situation?
Boundaries.
Boundaries? Okay, interesting.
Boundaries has been very, very important because I was like a doormat, a welcome doormat. And I was always very much afraid to hurt people.
Mm.
So I was a people pleaser to a T. I really, really was. And I've learned to stand up for myself. And, I'm still a work in progress. Well, perfect. Well, we're all perfect underneath. It's just, we've got all these layers, these conditioned layers to shed. Yeah. So sometimes we don't understand why things happen to us. But all we can do is rather than normally what happens is we react, yeah, rather than reflect. And that is really important. And all we can do is just remain standing in our power, because we give it away so often without even noticing it.
So I hear you saying like it's important to maintain the stance of equanimity, of neutrality, where we are not reacting to the situations that are coming up, but rather like turning inwards and reflecting on what we're experiencing. And do you feel like a part of the purpose that we're moving through these experiences is to help us deepen our own relationship to self?
That's one, yes.
And
Not just with ourselves, but also with others and also to inspire others. So I'm going to give you an example of something that happened to me recently with my ex that came to visit me in June. And I had done so much work on myself, so much healing, and there he was. And still, even though he had done some work on himself, he was not the person that I remembered. And he was very verbally abusive. He took over my whole home. He had mental health issues. My house was a disaster zone. So after nearly 3 weeks, I had enough. I had enough. My home was like a prison when I kicked him out. Yeah, that's boundaries. And that is really hard to do. But it was, for me at that point, it was like all my buttons had been pushed. But I remained really calm under the situation because when you raise your voice, yeah, you do not stand in your own power. And that was really important for me. Screaming is going to get you nowhere. That's just that's just the ego. And that's something I did years ago. And the one thing that my mom said to me, she's like, Birgitta, you've grown such a backbone. And yes, he came back, and then let's sort him out. Then he came back again, and I had to call the cops. And now he's back in the US, but I'm not in touch with him anymore because the beauty of an experience like that, even though I hadn't seen him for 15 years, is that I wasn't living with the what ifs anymore. I could shut the door for good. And it doesn't mean that I see him as a villain because he was a wonderful teacher. And it was just something that I had to experience. It was something that I had to go through. It doesn't mean I hate him. I don't hate anyone. I love everyone that's been a part of my life. Yeah. And still is. And so why carry all that bitterness around? Yes, I had to do healing after that. Of course I did. But I reach out to my go-to healer, light language healer, Louise Rhodes. And she helped me, but you still have to keep working on yourself. And so it's mentally, I was really strong. Physically, I took a beating because I suffered from a badly inflamed rib cage, but I still kept going. I still had to keep going. And yeah, really bad headaches as well. But I got past that. And I look back and I think, yes, it was traumatizing, but I got through it. And yet it was still a beautiful experience. And as Saint Germain always says, be grateful, um, and carry, he always says, bow down in gratitude for all your experiences. When you do that, only then can you move forward. And it's really about being in the present moment. That's another thing. You can't breathe in the past, nor can you breathe in the future, but you can breathe in the present moment. And this is where you create. So if you're really stuck in a rut, then know from this point on, from this moment, is where you can make the changes. I don't care if you've been in the same situation for years, it doesn't matter. It's becoming aware of what is happening with you rather than remaining running on automatic pilot, which is what a lot of us do because we put up with a lot of crap from people, so to speak. Yeah. And why do we do that? Because we're afraid. Oh, what's on the other side of that fence? Yeah. We like to keep in our safe space. And sometimes it's really hard for people to relinquish these experiences. But it's really about, like I said, why is this happening for me? And that's really important just to analyze and to ask yourself that.
So you said your go-to healer was a light language healer. What's that all about?
I mean, there's so many different modalities these days, and there are others that are eons old. I mean, Reiki is eons old. It came from Atlantis. And light language healing is like the cosmic language of love. It's a frequency. And the many light beings, as I call them, and they use the voice box and generate sound. And so the healing tones that come out of a light language healer is often not understood because it's like gobbledygook.
Mhm.
And and that's okay. Your mind's like, what? Like your soul's like, oh my God, and absorbs these codes just beautifully. And I mean, I've had it done and it's just worked wonders for me. It's always important to be open and receptive to it. But as I always say, what works for one doesn't necessarily work for another. You have to do what aligns with your spirit. That's the most important thing. So it's yeah, and I love light language. I'm one of these funny ones where before I go to sleep, I will just talk light language and then do my meditation and then I'll fall asleep.
So is this something that you can learn, or is it just
Yes,
something that comes through you? How?
you can learn it.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, for the longest time I had someone tell me, Brigitta, you're like a car in the MOT. You've got all the tools, but you need to tune yourself up. And there was like this disconnect. And so for me, I just said to my a friend of mine, she was my teacher, Siobhan Purcell in the UK, and I said to her, "Look, I need to have a face to face, and I need you to just, drum that light language out of me, and so I need you to just put me off that cliff." And so she came, and by the end of several hours later, when I was attuned, it just started to flow. I've never looked back since. It's constantly evolving, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Okay. So you said this is like eons old, and there's like all of these different types of modalities that somebody can connect with depending on what resonates with them personally. Some of your other modalities that you really enjoy.
I don't really use them anymore. I used to do EFT, emotional freedom technique, which is really simple, and it works. Um, I did, oh gosh, what else did I do? The list is so long. Of course, Reiki. I used to teach Reiki, and attune people. And I loved doing that at the time. Um, Aroma touch, because I do love my therapy oils. I love working with the unemployed angels.
Okay, tell me about that. So what are you referring to when you say unemployed angels?
Like they're lining up in the Heavenly Job Center, waiting for you to call them. So it's not like, we always call upon the archangels, right? Or the ascended masters. And the unemployed angels at the job center are like, excuse me, what about us? We can help you too. And so um it was I can't remember. I watched this interview with Ella Ringrose, and I was like, oh my gosh, I used to do this years ago. And then I started again. And it's really about just sitting down again with a notepad and a pen. Yeah, because doing it in your head doesn't work. That's not really an intent. And I sat down and I just asked the unemployed angels or the volunteer angels, or you can say the highest love and compassion. I always add divine frequency, but highest love and compassion. I ask that you assist me with, and then you write it down. It doesn't matter what it is, whether you want to buy a house or it's a new job or it's your health, it's your pet. You want to get a new car, or you want to send someone healing, or you want someone to have more clarity in their lives. I don't care. It can be as crazy as you like. And every time you just have to say that, I ask for an unemployed angel or volunteer angel of the highest love and compassion to assist me with. Write it down. And then the next one. And as you keep doing that, because I had like 30 of them and some of them have already been crossed out because that has been done. And I always say thank you. Yeah. And you just go back to it every 2 or 3 days and you just repeat it. Yeah, because you need to build up that rapport with them. But once you do it, I'm telling you, you can feel the energy in the room, and that's just really beautiful.
So in order to make connection with these angels, do you have to like maintain a certain like frequency within yourself? Do you have to be a certain way in order for them to recognize you? No? No? Okay.
And you can have fun with them. It's like saying, like for me, like I'm going on a shamanic journey on Wednesday, so in 2 days. Yes, in 2 days. And I asked them, look, if this is right for me, will you just show me a little lizard? Yeah, not chichat. I think that's the same thing. But I just said a lizard. So not the ones that you see regularly here in Spain. And then 2 days later, there was a little green one, it wasn't a normal green one, but it was a different kind of green. And it just scurried right past my feet. And then I looked up and I'm like, huh, cute. So I knew I had to get in touch with these people, and I did, and they were amazing. And the person that runs it, very funny, has the same bank as me in the UK, as in the same branch in the same town.
Whoa, okay. That's quite the
Yes. So that was really
journey
funny.
there.
Yes.
So, have there been things that you've put on your list that just haven't come to pass? And so then, like, do you just hold on to faith that the timing isn't right, or what does that look like?
So you just need to, yeah, you just need to have faith. You need to have trust. I have seen things in people, and I was like, "Ooh, this is great." People have been shown clarity, um, or other things. But I mean, yeah, there are things like, okay, for me, it's like when people ask for like a house move, yeah, just trust in the timing. Sometimes we may see something and we really like it, but it's not meant for us because there's something better around the corner. Yeah, so we just need to have that trust and that faith and just keep communicating with them. I think that is just the key. And it's the same with like our guardian angel. Um, it's like just imagine that from your heart space, they're calling it a little lifeline now. But it's like a little like a lifeline or a green cord, and you attach that cord to your guardian angel, and you just send love to your guardian angel and ask for that love back. And if you keep doing that 1 minute or 2 minutes a day, you will start to feel that because you nurture that bond. That's why I say with with anything in life, when you learn to ride a bicycle, you're not going to get it straight away. When you go to the gym, you do not build up muscles straight away. It takes some time. You have to keep at it.
Okay, so it's like a relationship that you're nurturing, that you're continuously returning to. It's not you just write this list on a piece of paper and then set it and be like, oh, well, it didn't happen.
Now you just go back to the list and say, um, you just repeat what you have on the list. I always say to them again, I ask for the volunteer angels or the unemployed angels of the highest vibration of love and compassion. Or can you help me with this? How is this going? And you just have that rapport with them, and that is just really important. It's the same when you have a corporate job, right? You nurture relationships.
Yeah, just keep checking in. Okay, so you have this corporate job, you are an author, you are a healer. In what capacity do you work with others in healing? And is that something you do? Or is it more at this point in your life you're focusing on your writing?
Yeah. So when people do come to me for healing, and I'll be very honest with you, right now I've just put it to the side because of course I've been healing myself and I've been writing a lot. I think after I journey on Wednesday, a lot will shift. And I will start to do more healing work again. But it's really important that sometimes we take a step back and we work on ourselves. So important that self-love is not selfish. It is selfless because, we also need to nurture our own spirit.
You had talked about previously how you used to be this people pleaser to a T, and
Yes,
how through those behaviors, like you had gotten yourself into some really abusive relationships where
yes,
people were manipulating and taking advantage of you. And
yes. I allowed it.
yeah, and how was it? You mentioned that boundaries is how you moved through that. But what was it that point in your life that helped you to realize like this is what I'm experiencing and this is something I have to change? Because people can have a really hard time
Yeah,
recognizing that within themselves.
absolutely. So it wasn't just one experience. I mean, for me, Heather, I grew up and I was molested as a child. I lost my dad when I was 14. I was already starving myself. I was really good at skipping meals. Then I was bullied in high school because I was, 5'11" and super skinny. And that was really tough. And I wanted to try my hand in the modeling industry, and I wasn't really cut out for that. I was walking around like the Hunchback of Notre Dame because I just didn't want to be seen. I was so afraid of guys and very insecure. I had no self-worth. And yeah, even in the modeling industry, I was assaulted. My stepdad passed away when I was 25 of cancer. My dad passed away of coronary heart disease. And Yeah, so I didn't really heal, and that's one of the reasons that I rolled into dysfunctional relationships because I was so broken on the inside myself. And it took me many, many years to heal and to understand my experiences. And I think only in 2009, my my ex that came to visit me here, he was a part-time crack addict at the time, and he had visited me in Holland. Actually, I paid his ticket. And my kink in the cable was that I was trying to help everyone and walk to the ends of the earth for them. It means finding them jobs, making sure that they were okay. Was that was working. It was like, but you can't do that because you're only hurting yourself. And it's not only that we stump their growth, but we also stump our own growth. And sometimes we have to let people go and let them walk their own path rather than, having this piece of clay and trying to mold them according to the way that you want. It doesn't work that way. So I had to learn that through several relationships. Yeah, and that's why I was a people pleaser to a T. And in 2016, and when I went through another very difficult relationship, somebody who didn't want to let me go, and he had a reckless and was just afraid of losing me, so was pretty possessive, even though we didn't live together. And but he moved two doors down from an hour away. And so it was like this constant control, like, where are you? And he wanted to eat in my home. And then he couldn't pay his bills. So I had to pay his bills, I had to get his groceries. And I was working like 7 days a week in the US.
Oh,
Yeah, because I also had my own home. I mean, I bought my home and it was mortgage free. But it was like, and my guys up there were like watching the screen and munching away at the popcorn, thinking, oh my God, what's she going to do now? Oh, here she goes again. Brigitta's doing the exact same thing. Hallelujah. What is she going to learn? And so, and so it was really when I sold my home to get away from him. I sold my home to get away from him and then bought another one, which was a bit of a money pit. I knew that I mean, I was so down in the dumps, you call it, that I was depressed. I was just on the floor at night, screaming at the universe and just crying my eyes out and saying, I cannot go on like this anymore. Because I was so, so deeply unhappy. But with me, probably been depressed more times in my life, but I've always carried on. I'm not one to believe in all these labels. It's a label. Depression is a label. Fear is a label. Guilt, bitterness, anger. These are all labels we've slapped upon our minds. And Archangel Michael always says you can sum up depression in one sentence, and that is that you've shot your mind to hell,
mm,
because that's exactly what it is in a way. Yeah, we feed so much into our mind, and we become so anxious because of the thoughts, um, that we become overwhelmed and we become depressed and we don't know how to move forward. Um, and it's really hard to get out of that space. It's like everything becomes a Herculean task for you. And it's no joke, it really isn't. But I knew that in order to change, I really had to dig deep, really had to dig deep. And I didn't want to go on like that. It's not fun to be lying on the floor and just crying your eyes out every single night. But people didn't know that about me. I'm someone that when I go through an experience, it's my monkey. It's something that I have to deal with. Now, sometimes we create that experience, other times we do not. But we still need to look at the experiences and say, you know what? How can I change? How do I break this cycle? How do I break this pattern? And only you can decide that for you. Yeah, nobody else can. You can talk to people. I was very much inward. I'm a bit of an introvert. So it was me just shouting at the universe, saying, you know what, please help me. And I did get that help. I did get that help. And it was like a little breadcrumb that all of a sudden that I saw. and that was in the form of combo healing, which is shamanic frog healing, and very, very powerful. I went to see a licensed healer in Florida from Peru, and I had read up about it, but not as much because I didn't want to cap my expectation. So I sit there, and then he asked for an intent, and he burned like 4 points in my leg, and then he put the frog poison on there from the monkey tree frog. These frogs don't die; they just scrape the poison off their backs, and it's ancient old healing. And I had a yellow bucket next to me, a sunshine, called a little sunshine bucket. And after like 10 seconds, I was like purging. She also have to drink like 2 liters of water, purging. And then it just came out everywhere. And I ran to the toilet and he just helped me up. And it was just back and forth, back and forth. And it was really, my ego was so firmly in the driver's seat. Um, I really was battling. And so finally, after 4 hours, which was ridiculously long, I stopped purging, and it was very, very powerful because it's very physical. And I was so clear in my head that what happened was I made a list of the things that I wanted to do, and even that I had promised to do. So one of these things was running for charity, especially for cancer, because I promised my stepdad in 2000 would, that I would. So it materialized 16 years later, finally.
Mm.
And I really enjoyed it. And I also went skydiving,
Wow.
hand gliding. And so, yeah, and then I started channeling. And so that was the beginning of my journey, so to speak, another chapter. And it doesn't mean that my life has always been a bed of roses. Oh, heck no. I mean, come on. It's like, my guys are always like, I mean, we get put through experiences so that we can inspire others, that we can empower others and help others along the way. Um, and for me, it's like without my experiences, I wouldn't have a book to write. I wouldn't have books to write.
So when we go through these experiences, then we are holding this energy in the physical body. Is that why we have to purge when you do these healings? Is that what's going on there?
Yeah, so for me, yeah, exactly. We hold it. We hold a lot of trauma in our bodies. We do, in the cells, in the memory cells, as I call it. And it's even, some people go for counseling that helps them. Other people use Reiki or have spiritual healing, and that also helps. It's just you heal by peeling the layers. It's not like in one go. No, you peel the layers. And when we're really stuck and we don't know where to start, I always say to people, just reach out to someone. Yeah, just talk to someone and see what they say. But there is no shame in asking for help. There's no shame in seeing a counselor or a healer, or whatever you decide you want to do to heal. Yeah, people think this is not it's like this shame. It's like that's society for you, because we are expected to live a certain way, to be a certain way, and to act a certain way. And I think that's garbage. Yeah, the most important thing is you. The most important thing is how you feel about yourself, and do what makes you happy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So you have another book coming out. You already have one that's published, correct?
Yep.
And what?
Yeah, that was published in 2022.
Okay.
Um, it's called Becoming Authentically Me, which was a pretty big book because it was my first book.
Okay.
So, yeah. And it's all about my life experiences, and also why many things happened in the last couple of years. I go back to the Second World War, Atlantean times. I talk about the fact that there is no death. I mean, sure, the physical, but we are energy. We continue on. We are eternal. And so we've lived 1,000 lifetimes and we will live 1,000 more. And then I was part of a collaboration called Become Empowered, stories of um, Echoes and Grace. And that's been out since April. I've
Okay.
got another collaboration book coming out in 2 weeks' time. I'm so glad you left me. 88 stories of, I think they're all women having overcome various forms of trauma in their life. So that's really beautiful, I think. And then, yes, my second solo book comes out in November. It's called Child of the Sun, En route to Enlightenment in India. And I love it. It's filled with a sense of humor from the many channeled deities like Krishna, Ganesh, Shiva, Hanuman, and then, of course, Saint Germain, Archangel Michael, Lord Sanat Kumara, talking about life, about relationships, um, about the suffering in the world. I talk a lot about the corporate world and how the landscape has changed. Also, God, about depression, about my time at the Art of Living Center in India, learning about meditation and breath work, also about the culture. So there's a lot in there.
Yeah, sounds like it. Wow. Well, I still don't know how you find the time to do all of these different things, but thank you for putting yourself out into the world and sharing it, your experiences, so that we can learn and be inspired through everything that you've been through. So, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. And how can people find you if they would like to connect and learn more?
In my skin. I'm saying. No, yeah, so they can find me on powersoulhealing.com and on Instagram under Universal Light Warriors and on YouTube under Power Soul Healing.
Okay. Okay. And I'll be sure to link all of that in the show notes. So, anything else you would like to leave us with before we end?
Remember, always be you, not who the world wants you to be.
Such a good reminder. Thank you.
Mm.
Well, best of luck.
Well, I always say it's my guides. I have to write it. That's what I came here to do.
Okay.
And so if you really aspire, whatever, like I said to you, Heather, it doesn't matter what you want to do in your life. Yeah. As long as you're happy. All this status quo about university, college, and all that. If that's what you want to do, that's great. But if it's you wanting to take care of your family, then that's really beautiful too. Yeah. But the main thing is that you're happy within yourself, that you find that joy within yourself, that you cultivate that joy within yourself. That is important.